I'm back. And I got a phone call during the spring game. A surprising phone call, I would say. Not from a surprising person, but a surprising energy. And he's a Nebraska fan. His first comment to me was, "Give me one word to describe what you're watching." Now, you guys know me. My one word wasn't going to be some bullshit like he was about to say. And I'm hoping that the energy on this show today matches my energy to some degree. My quote, or not the quote word I said, was "This game is physical." His word was "This game is terrible." Excuse me? Now, I'm not going to call any names out and say who it was who called and said this. I mean, just on the pessimistic attitude, some of you can probably guess who it was. But we got to watch a game. We got to watch, 16 to 20 guys who we've never seen play before hit people. We got to see mistakes, but we also got to see some positives. And because there were so many positives and good takeaways from this, it's going to make my job a lot easier tonight and tomorrow when I release my full video of a breakdown with everything I learned. And today's about you and about us. So this is going to be a show where I take calls from you. I answer your questions. I want to get your thoughts because as important as my thoughts are, I want to make sure I take into account everything you guys saw because I can't cover it all by myself. With all that said, I'm really excited to make this video. Last year's spring game, we didn't have a lot of takeaways. I actually went back and watched my reaction to last year's spring game. I made it 2 days after the fact because honestly, the spring game was so dull. The spring game was so uninspiring that I didn't need to go and rush home to make a video because there was nothing to be learned. There were just a few minor things we could pick up on from some of the transfers. But today, yeah, there was some greatness. Not great play, but there was some great things we learned, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm just going to leave it at that because there were positive takeaways. I just don't want to get too deep into the positive takeaways without getting to hear what you guys thought about it. I made a long list of notes for my video tomorrow, and I still have to listen to the press conferences. So this is a reaction to the game, not the press conferences, for me at least, because I have not got a chance to listen to those yet. With all of that, I want to show you guys how to call in first, because I know there are always questions about how that works. So here's what you do. When you're in the Discord, you click on the waiting room. That'll put you right in here. I'll be able to drag you into the head office, and then you can talk to me. So it's really simple, and I'm really excited to take calls from you guys today because it's been a while since we've all gotten to connect and talk, and I miss you. I saw one of the comments in here saying that it's been slow getting through the off season without our community, and I agree. It's really tough to just go back to my normal life after we go through the high of a football season and the high of getting to talk every day about all the nonsense we watched on the field. But hey guys, I see all your comments. Hey Connors, and I'm saying hi back to everybody who's here. Thank you for being here. It's been, I think, a week since I made my last video. I do want to address that really quickly. I made a video last week where I talked about why Casey Thompson will win the quarterback job. And there were some comments on there saying, "Connor, I disagree with you and all this this nonsense." And I'm calling it nonsense because I think you misunderstood the video. I'm not telling you who I think is going to win the quarterback job. I'm making the case for one guy, and I want you to be able to look at that one guy, even though he's not going through the spring practices like some of these other quarterbacks are, and still acknowledge the great things he's done, the great contributions he can make to this team going forward, and realize that there is an open QB battle, although we did get to see a solid QB in there today. I would say 2 solid QBs today, and even Chuba had a good day. So 3. I saw another comment in here that said, who do you think is going to transfer from quarterback? Gosh, it's such an interesting question now, right? All of these guys got reps. You didn't see Logan Smothers or Casey Thompson, but we did get to see the other 4 who've been talked about the most this offseason. So there's a lot to be excited about. I'm pumped up. I'm going to read through some of these comments really quick, just in case there are any quick questions that I can answer. Crypto Badger, how are you not watching? It's a Saturday. You don't got to go to work. You're a farmer. I'm disappointed that you're not on top of it with us. You're one of the biggest Nebraska fans I know now that you dumped Dion. I see a lot of comments about the fumbles. I think we might be all right. Good to see those mistakes now than in September. They have all summer for the offense to gel and to right the fumbles. It was interesting to see how many turnovers and fumbles there were. I couldn't believe the sloppy handoffs, I wouldn't call it sloppy snaps. I would call it miscommunications on the snaps or mishandles. I was surprised by that. You would think that those guys would have gotten that kind of cleaned up by now. It's been a month and a half, but I was expecting some sloppiness. It's only been 2 months of practice together, and like I said, there are almost 20 new guys who were major contributors from the transfer portal, freshmen. We saw 2 fantastic freshmen on the defensive line today, and Prince Will and Cam Lenhart. It's going to be a good season. It's going to be a good season, I said. I didn't say it's going to be a great season. I'm tempering my expectations, justified, okay, because you've got to understand there are a lot of freshmen who are going to play, a lot of guys who've never played before who are going to get some opportunities, and they've still got to install some things. So I'm reserving my my season prediction for August. Well, early August. So I'm not going to give you an exact number, but I am expecting a bowl game. Ardwin, thanks for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. Thank you for the 5. We have to remember, this is far from a polished product. A lot of spring has been instilling culture in the offense and defense, and a lot of learning. That's the key, right? People had to get through and learn the new system. So MJ Sherman looked good, as Melissa said. Boss says Harburg was a dog. That's a fact. Husker Power says, what are my thoughts on Harburg? Very simply put, Harburg is a specimen. They've talked about him all spring. They talked about him before he got to Nebraska. He was a track star. He's physically... is it the match? Would we call him a match to Jeff Sims? Here's the thing. When we talk about the transfer quarterbacks, I know I'm going on a tangent right here, but I'm going to bring it all back in. You've got Harburg. You've got Sims. We'll put Casey Thompson in that same conversation. Physically, right? They can all throw the ball. They have power. They all have physical gifts because they're quick. They're fast. They can get away. Even Chubba Purdy, actually. The Chubba Purdy bad taste is still left in all of our mouths after those last 3 games last year against Illinois, Minnesota, and Michigan. But despite all of that, you have one quarterback who doesn't really fit the bill in Logan Smothers. So that's the quarterback that we all have questions about, right? He hasn't practiced in spring. Does he stay? Does he go? Is that a guy who's ever going to get an opportunity? Harburg, though, looks like Jeff Sims. And if he looks like Jeff Sims, that means he's a guy who can go and fill the role if he's not going to be able, if Jeff Sims isn't going to be able to play, because now you have quarterbacks who can run the same offense. Serial says, my favorite thing from the spring game was seeing Coach Solich back at the stadium, getting the applause from fans that he deserved. I thought that was really cool when they ran with Bonner right away. 7-yard gain, right up, was it a dive or a trap? I think it was a trap around the outside to Bonner from fullback. And that was to honor Solich. And then they gave Solich the first ball of the game. So that was pretty cool. Talkin says, how many drop passes by receivers? It was so cold and windy, maybe that's why. There were a lot of drop passes. There were a lot of bad throws, a lot of wobbly throws. I don't know if the cold had anything to do with it, but yeah, that was a factor for sure. It's 80 degrees at my house, so I don't know what struggle you guys are dealing with over there. I saw people wearing beanies and hoodies. Crazy. Brad says Chubby looked better from what I saw. Still probably won't get much playing time, though. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see. First caller I'm going to bring in is Nick. Nick, can you hear me? Nick, test. Nick's not answering. Corey, unmute yourself. Corey, test. Corey. I don't know why I can't hear you. Let me see here. There we go. Nick, talk. Or Corey, talk, sorry. Guys, I'm sorry. Technical difficulty. I think Corey can hear me, and I can't hear him. And I don't know why. Stay with me. Yes, need assistance. I had Denon help me set this up the other day, and everything worked perfectly fine. And now, I don't know why, I'm unable to hear. Sorry, guys. This was working literally 2 days ago. This activity. In Discord, yes, Denon. I have caller in, and I cannot hear them, although my voice is connected. Mickey says, thank you for the $2, Mickey. He says, Prince will look good. How do I join the Discord? The Discord link is in the description below. And you can just click that and it'll join you in right away. Princeville did look really good. I thought both freshmen looked awesome. Bruce, I love this. Ever hear of a sound check? I did a sound check before the show. I did a full run of show before, and everything was working perfectly fine. So this isn't my first time. And all of these people have permission. Thank you guys for all of your feedback. I have done everything that I'm supposed to do, unfortunately, that I know how to do. So anyway, maybe I won't take calls. I will just take questions from the comments and respond to those. Super unfortunate. I'm sorry. I don't know how I screwed that up. They all have permission. Anyway, I'm disconnecting here to not confuse anybody. Bang. So no call in. I screwed up, guys. My bad. Keegan says, what do you think of the XFL kickoff? I thought that was great. We don't want any injuries. We still had injury issues today. There were O-lineman issues, O-lineman injury issues. And then at the end there, I thought a receiver went down. I can't remember if that happened or not. Was it Marcus Washington? I don't remember who it was. Unfortunate when you see the injuries, but I'd rather see guys go out there and play full speed, go out there and hit and get ready for the season than basically hope that they're all going to be prepared and all going to be ready. Because at the end of the day, we've watched that 4 or 5 years in a row now, and that same system hasn't worked. So I'd rather see something different than see the same story before and have it be a failed experiment. So I like that Matt Rule went out there and did something new. Matt says, I know we are here for the Nebraska spring game. I know you watched some of the Colorado game. I noticed Dion was wearing nothing with Colorado. It was all prime gear. It's sad. It's all about him, not about the Buffs, GBR. Yeah, I mean, the conversations right now are all about Dion and Matt Rule. And I put a tweet out the other day that I thought was funny. And it was, what was it? It was side by side of Dion's conversation, or no, Dion's post on Colorado social media saying, or it's really Colorado's post, but it's Dion's message. The transfer portal's open. We're looking for guys, versus Matt Rule, who said, I'm going to coach my own players. And the energy and the attitude between Matt and Dion are obviously so different. And then we saw all that go viral, and people on ESPN were talking about it and acting like there's some feud or some beef between Dion and Matt, and there's not, obviously. But I thought it was really interesting that, yeah, we have a very different coach than we had initially anticipated getting, because there were two coaches who we could have gotten in Lane Kiffin or Deion Sanders who would have had a much different spin on the culture they were building in Lincoln than Matt has. And a lot of us, including myself, were really excited about the opportunity to hopefully interview a Dion or a Lane, and we were a little bit more subdued when it came to the Matt Rule conversation, because we thought, oh, well, you know, he's failing in the NFL and he's not the hot name. Man, were we wrong. I was wrong. Husker Nation says, Gilbert was pretty disappointing today. Yeah, kind of frustrating. I don't know why Eric Gilbert doesn't look back to the form that we had seen him at LSU, right? He's gone through some things. He now has to get back to playing football, getting back to playing at a high level, like a starting caliber spot. So maybe he needs to get broken back in, think of it that way. Whereas guys like Borkacher played all last year. He's now going to compete for a role, a serious role, because you have Fedoni and Borkacher, who now look like the two best tight ends. Another quote-unquote tight end is Bonner, who I wouldn't even call Bonner a tight end at this point. Bonner looked more like the fullback, the full-time fullback, and I'm sure he can run routes and do some different things, but that guy can block, that guy can run the ball. Bonner looked fantastic, as good as we had hoped he'd be based on all the conversations that we heard coming out of this first spring camp. So that was really exciting to hear about. But I wouldn't worry too much about Gilbert. There's going to be opportunity for him to get better. There's going to be opportunity for him to potentially contribute in some other way. So it's still early. Tone Zeus says Princewell and Wallen were monsters. Wallen had the stop. He had back-to-back stops. He had a stop on like third down, and then he had one on Buschini when Buschini went for it on 4th and 4 or something like that, and he tackled him. So Wallen's the junior college transfer defensive end. Princewell's the true freshman. Princewell's an NFL level guy. He's a guy who they recruited, who they know they can develop. And although he might not be a star as a true freshman, he's going to get to play a lot. And I'm sure everything will work out by the time he gets to his sophomore, junior year, to where he's one of the best players on that defensive line. The other thing that's really interesting about the D-line is you see so many new faces. Right now, it was Nash Hutmacher, it was Elijah Judy, it was MJ Sherman, and then Princewell on the outside. So if you have those 4 guys, that's 3 new names that we haven't gotten to see very much of yet. It's exciting. And the D-line gave me a lot more hope than the offensive line did, unfortunately. The offensive line, there was a comment made by, I think it was Sean Callahan. Someone sent it to me yesterday. And he said that he talked to a former offensive lineman from Nebraska who said if they didn't get Ben Scott, that this offensive line would be in a dark place. Ben Scott didn't even have that good of a day. But the offensive line in general, well, perfect timing, Max. Thanks for the $5 super chat. I already started talking about it. What do you think about the O-line? In my opinion, it looked improved in pass blocking. I think they did good in pass blocking for sure, but when it came to run blocking and when it came to, I think, gap discipline, they weren't in position at all times. I think there were a couple times when the center didn't get the handoff the right way to the quarterback. Not the handoff, the snap off the right way to the quarterback. I think that happened 2 or 3 times where the quarterback actually dropped the ball. There was one time where Sims had one out of shotgun. He dropped that. I'm not sure if that was a center issue, if he snapped it too far right. What else? What happened on the offensive line when Corcoran got hurt? After that, I think Neweli came in at left tackle or right tackle. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Neweli. Anyway, there were a lot of guys who were getting shifted around and playing different positions. And then we saw Jacob Hood get hurt, who I don't think anyone's expecting him to play really. But regardless, you don't want your lineman getting hurt when you've only got 13 or 14 guys who are ready to play right now. What else happened on the O-line? They lost to the D-line, just flat out. They have more experience. They're older. And in my opinion, the number 1 O-line got beat down by the number 1 D-line. So it is what it is, but at least there's improvement on one of those sides so far. And I think the offensive line will only get better as we go on, as they figure out some different schemes that will help them to be in better positions to succeed that fit their skill sets, right? So if Nebraska ends up being really good at that fullback trap, not even just the fullback trap, the fullback, why am I blanking? The crack block when the fullback comes around the backside and the running back takes the ball and goes the opposite way. Okay, if the offensive line isn't that good at blocking, but you've got an extra fullback in there, you now have a 6-on-5 or a 6-on-4. So the offensive line is going to be able to the offensive line and the fullback are going to be able to outnumber the front on the defense and hopefully create more opportunities to let the guy get 4 or 5 yards as opposed to getting stuffed at the line like we saw a lot of the time last year with Anthony Grant or even A.J. Allen early on. Haralord says, imagine Gilbert being the fullback. I don't know why they haven't tried him there. He's such a big body, but I think he's such a weapon as a receiver, or at least he has the potential to be a weapon as a receiver, that they want to make sure that they utilize him the best way they can. And why put him behind the line in a 3-point stance and use him as a blocker if this guy could be a potential Megatron and go deep and basically beat corners, linebackers, whoever ends up lining up against him. I like the idea of using the big body back there, but let's stick with Janirin. That dude's a stud. Nick says, Kemp is exciting to watch. Can't wait to see him in action this fall. Kemp is quick. Kemp had good hands. He had 3 catches, 4. He had a few downfield that were really nice. So I think people are talking about him being the number 1 receiver, and I think today he established that. Marcus Washington, one of the issues he had last year was a few drop balls, and there was one today that just gut punched me. He was, what was it, a 10-yard curl or a 10-yard out. It was something. I can't remember exactly what. But he came back for the ball. It was for a first down. I think it was a third down situation, maybe a 3rd and 10. Came back for the ball. I think, I got to go back and watch it again. He did this thing where he tried to catch the ball and he went at it like that. And the ball just went down and hit the ground. I love when receivers bring the ball into them. And I've seen Marcus Washington twice. One time in the game last year and then this time today where he like attacks the ball and drops it. Hopefully they can get that cleaned up. Marcus Washington's probably one of their best receivers. So if they can get him to be optimized, I think you've got Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, and we didn't get to see IGC. Thomas Fedoni didn't do very much today, but there's still plenty of pass catchers out there. Borkacher was the one who really surprised me. He had that first catch from Jeff Sims down the middle. It was a seam. It was like, what, 20-something yards? That was fantastic. Dutch says, what's your opinion on some of the incoming freshmen? Well, the two main ones that we had talked about a minute ago were Prince Will and Cam Lenhart. They did fantastic, and the defensive line is going to be upgraded because of them right away. Who are some other true freshmen who played? Let me know, guys, in the comments. I'm thinking right now. Did any DBs play? Sincere Seifula, did he play? I think he did. I think he had a tackle. I think. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. McFly Guy says, Sims going 9 of 13 in that wind with a couple drops should help ease any accuracy concerns. Casey going to have some work to do to catch him. So I thought what was interesting about Sims is if Nebraska does want to run the ball, he possesses such a good skill set, such a good body type, that it's going to be really hard for Casey to catch up. So Casey's going to be strong. He's going to be in good shape, right? But does Casey have the ability to take that many hits? He's 5'11", 5'10", 205. Jeff's like 220. So if they are going to run the ball and they want the guy to run downhill like a running back, as we saw today with Jeff Sims, he ran one in. Who tried to tackle him? I think he had a linebacker and a DB try to take him down at around the 5-yard line. He basically truck-sticked and stiff-armed both those guys, got in the end zone. There was another one, speaking of the defense, where Gabe Irvin went around the left side. I think it was a power formation out of I. Bonner was at fullback, and Irvin ran over a linebacker and then kind of shook off a DB to get into the end zone. So I really like the downhill running, and if the quarterbacks are going to be expected to run downhill, then yeah, Casey does have some work to do. But again, he can do it. I made that entire video where I made the case for Casey. And that guy has shown he's a trooper, he's a stud, and he can do a lot of things that Sims might not be able to do. I don't know how accurate Sims is going to be, how good his balls are going to be when he's playing against... I wouldn't call Nebraska's defense bad today, but you've got some really good DBs when you play in the Big Ten. And if those guys are flying around, who's going to be the one that makes better decisions, or who's going to be the one who can deliver the ball more consistently, more on time? Casey's obviously the one who I think is a little bit more of an accurate passer, so we'll have to see. But I wouldn't say half of what Casey is. I think that Sims and Casey are equal in terms of quarterback. I just think they have different skill sets. Sims brings more running ability, has a size advantage, and has that opportunity to give you some different looks because the defense is going to have to guess, or they're going to have to put an extra spy out there. With Casey, I don't think they're going to be as concerned. I think he's still a weapon and a threat to run, but they're definitely more concerned about his arm than they are about him running. So you get different elements from each of these quarterbacks. Both of them are good, though. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Sims isn't half of what Casey is. Those guys are both studs. I really hope this incoming kicker will be good because I hate missed field goals. Well, here's the truth. The incoming kicker is Tristan Alvano. He's going to be here in, 2 months? I don't think he's going to start as a true freshman. So we'll be seeing Timmy Bleekrode. And today, he had a 43-yarder missed. He had a 49-yarder made. I think the miss was against the wind. The make was with the wind. So that's obviously a difference there. And then I think a different kicker had another miss that was like around 40-something yards. So unfortunate, but it was still positive to see somebody make a kick, period. But I think Albano's a kicker of the future, not a kicker of the now. I think that's one thing that fans are going to get a little frustrated by. Not frustrated, because a lot of us are understanding and we have common sense, right? We see this staff recruiting really good players, and we know that this staff's got some good coaches. So in your head, you're like, all right, last year, Nebraska could have won 6, 7 games, no problem. They had the talent to do so. Now we go into this year. Well, we've got better talent than we had last year. We had better coaching than we had last year, and we have an easier schedule than we had last year. So no brainer, Nebraska should win 7, 8, and be competing for 9. Now, although I do agree with those sentiments, I think the issue is going to be Nebraska's going to play some young guys. Nebraska's going to have some guys who come in that they're going to have to develop. And we're going to see some guys from Nebraska, like one of the guys at linebacker, Bullock, who hasn't played. I don't think he's played anywhere except for special teams. He's competing for a starting spot at linebacker, right? So you've got some guys who haven't played yet, who weren't that highly recruited, who are still being developed. And this staff's going to find ways to use them. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Same thing with Bokacher. Bokacher wasn't a superstar tight end, but now he's competing with Eric Gilbert and Thomas Fedoni for who's going to get the most targets, right? Interesting situation. And Seifula was the one. We confirmed it. McFly guy, thank you. Brad says Albano's not on campus yet. Yes, sir, that's confirmed. Boss says Sims has this, it seems, uncanny ability to stay on his feet and slip through tackles. The one TD run was impressive. There was another run that was impressive. It wasn't just the TD. I don't remember when it was. There were 2. I like the idea that we have a quarterback who can scramble and get out of situations, get out of bad situations, because when you don't have the best offensive line, and although they might be better in pass pro than they were last year, if they are giving up some ground, you've got a quarterback who can maneuver and find a way to make things happen and let receivers get downfield. And he has a cannon, so if a guy's 30 yards down there, he can probably hit him. I did see a couple overthrows today. There were a lot of missed balls, but what are you going to do? These guys are still working with their receivers, and they're still trying to get better. Minnie says, I have a football crush on MJ Sherman. That dude is fierce. MJ Sherman, he didn't get that many opportunities at Georgia. And I think, I don't know how highly I rated him in my transfer portal video where I ranked all the transfers who came in for Nebraska this year. But he was up there. He was a top 3, I think. So at Georgia, he didn't get many looks because Georgia has superstar NFL guys come in every single year. And although he might not be a first-round draft pick at linebacker, this guy has the tools and the traits to be an NFL linebacker. Nebraska gets an instant upgrade at D end. We saw a lot of 4-down line sets today. And if he's coming on and rushing the edge and he can make plays against our starting O-line, no problem like that, then maybe against some of these other Big Ten lines, he can do some damage. So I think that's an instant starter on the edge. And I think, who else? MJ Sherman's an instant starter on the edge. It feels like Prince Will is going to get a lot of reps. Kai Wallen's probably going to get a lot of reps. There's just a lot of new guys we haven't talked about before because they're new. And I think the defense is just going to look a lot different. Nick says, Tony White defense is definitely fun to watch. They're all over the field wreaking havoc. I think it created a lot of confusion. And I think it was tough for some of the quarterbacks to throw in that. You saw Chuba Purdy roll around in the pocket a little bit, Heinrich Hartberg roll around a little bit because they're just trying to find something to do when a lot of their looks are getting covered up real quick, right? And they've got pressure in their face because the defense was running different blitzes. I thought that was just awesome to see. The defense, from what we heard during spring ball, was performing, and we're talking about the first team defense. The first team defense was performing better than the first team offense. I think the offense had some turnovers in that last scrimmage last week. And today, it felt like the offense was performing better. One of the things you got to take into account, of course, is all the turnovers. We saw, I think, 2 or 3 back-to-back turnovers from the red team. And that just crushed them because the defense was getting worn down and then the offense could just pick them apart. So the offense obviously got to look a little bit better than they probably actually were. But the running backs played really well. It was just exciting all around. I'm just so glad we get to talk about Nebraska football because it's been so damn long. Lucas says, what do you think about Coleman getting hurt during track? Well, it sucks. You don't want anybody getting hurt. But I guess the good part is he's coming to Nebraska and he's going to be rested up. That's not even a good part. I can't twist it into a good thing. I'm trying to. There's no good part. It sucks that Coleman got hurt in track. Can't wait till he gets to Nebraska and gets fully healthy because he's going to compete for some sort of playing time this year. Don't know how much, but some. Dreamin' Digital says MJ spoke at the press conference, likes his personality. I haven't listened to any of the press conference. I'm going to have to do that today. But I wanted to make sure I sat down and listened to all of it. And I didn't want to rush through it. I was trying to get done with the video, or get done with the spring game and then get this set up, which I screwed all this up anyway. Mess. Go Big Ready says, defense ain't great and offense can't score. I'm sorry, what? We're in spring, brother. We're in spring. Offense could score. Running backs look solid. Quarterback play looked decent. Defense had a few bright spots. There's a lot of work to do, for sure. But pessimistic comments like this? Come on. Come on, where do you think you're at? I'm not living in the freaking gutter with you. I am positive. I know there are some bright things ahead. I know that these guys are going to get developed. Come on. Cheer up. What do you think our chances are with Brandon Baker? Need more offline studs. O-line studs, I think you meant to say. So I think the chances are really good. They said he's going to release a top 10 and that he brought his whole family up here. He convinced one of his modern day teammates to come. I think a defensive lineman who's like a top 5 D lineman in the country. So if he's getting guys to come, he's not worried about Dylan Raiola, clearly, because Raiola's pretty much long gone at this point. I think Nebraska has a really good chance. So I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know how we read those odds. I think the key thing we're going to have to look for is, can Nebraska make a bowl game? If Nebraska can make a bowl game, show progress in year one, and show that they're not messing around, show that they've got some NFL-level talent, because if you've got defensive linemen or whatever, receivers, whoever they're bringing in that they're developing, if they can show some of those guys have bright futures, then guys like Brandon Baker are going to say, they've already got some guys on the roster, get a couple more like me in there, and we could be a good team. So I think that this year is going to tell us a lot about how we do in recruiting this season. So we're going to have to wait. I don't know if anybody's going to commit like a Brandon Baker would commit in summer. I think it's a long process. It's far out. We got to wait. Alex says, already have one commit from earlier today. Yeah, Willie McGahee Jr. Anyone else committing this weekend? I don't know. Maybe a Nebraska guy, but I don't think any big names will commit this weekend. I think most guys are going to wait. My understanding is that if you're not a quarterback, you have all season to wait because no one's going to take your place usually, and you can just wait up until September, October, November to finalize your decisions. And a lot of guys are still taking official visits, and they're going to take official visits from now until whenever, August, before their football season starts. So we're a long way out. Lucas says, what do you think the recruits' opinions were on the game? So I think it's so important. I started this show off by talking about my thoughts on the person who called me saying the game was terrible, right? The game isn't what mattered today. What mattered was the energy. What mattered was how the players showed up. What mattered is what the coaching looked like. And all of that looked super positive to me. So I'm hoping that recruits looked at today and said, this was fantastic. These coaches are serious. They go out there and they play football. The fans were really engaged. This is a great environment to be in, and this is a place I'd love to play. That's how I would look at it, right? If I watched the Minnesota game before, I did watch the Minnesota spring game before. They were in their indoor facility. They had a few people lined up on the sidelines, but it wasn't like a spring game with a bunch of their fans, right? It was just kind of a little glorified practice. And keep in mind, Minnesota is a very winnable game, game one. Promise you that, especially after watching today's spring game. But anyway, that's my thoughts on recruits and what they thought today. Boss says, who's who when it comes to the 85-man roster? People are going to move around. Well, we'll see who's still here after this week. I don't know what your question is or what your comment is, but yeah, we're going to see after this week, after the roster shifts up a little bit. Let's see. Go Big Ready again. I don't know if he's trolling, if he thinks he's funny or what. So we'll answer another question from him. If a kid who, not a question, a comment, we'll respond to it. If a kid who is a late enrollee can compete for time, he's obviously talking about Malachi Coleman. I'm scared. You're scared? He wasn't even the best receiver in Nebraska this year. Okay, Malachi Coleman's a freak athlete. Malachi Coleman, whether he's the best receiver in Nebraska, not Nebraska, wherever you want to say it, if he's a top 25 receiver, I don't care about any of that. The guy's a stud. Nebraska doesn't have that much receiver depth. They have really right now 4 guys who are Big Ten starting caliber guys, and even that's a bit of a stretch. Well, I guess, no, they're Big Ten starting caliber guys. They're not Ohio State's caliber guys. They're not Wisconsin caliber guys or teams who win at the highest level. But they're going to get there. Anyway, if Malachi comes in and he's a big body, he brings something different than a lot of these receivers bring. Right now, the biggest receiver is Xavier Betts or Marcus Washington. Both are 6'2"-ish, 6'1", 6'2". You have Malachi who's 6'3", 6'4". I mean, come on. And I think he's listed at 6'5". Come on. So Malachi coming in, who's a track athlete, who can compete for a specific spot and play a certain role, I think is something we can all expect and something that would be safe to say is acceptable and something we shouldn't be scared of. Nebraska's not a 4-win team just because they're playing freshmen. There are a ton of teams around the whole country who play true freshmen. 3-star true freshmen, not 4-star, highly rated, borderline 5-star guys. 3-star true freshmen, walk-on true freshmen. It happens all around the country. So that comment isn't going to age well. Castle says, good show, shows fire. Big Red Nation on the field, in the stands, and on the sidelines. Looked really good today. It looked awesome today. Today when I got to watch from my TV, it felt like I was watching a normal Nebraska game, right? And I'm on Twitter scrolling. Everybody's talking about it. I'm on Instagram. Everybody's posting about it. There's just so much positive energy whenever Nebraska fans come together. It's not a normal spring game environment. I think that's the biggest thing you got to know about recruiting. Recruits come and see this, and then they go and watch other spring games with other schools. Nebraska has a 13-game schedule every year. They've got their 12-game slate in the fall, and then they have their one game that's a spring game that is so monumental and so important. And now it actually is important because they actually hit, and Matt Rule makes them play a real game. Just makes me happy. CJ, I don't know if I answered your questions or not. I got to go back through and see. I've got a lot of comments, so maybe drop them in here again, and I'll respond. Lucas says, what are our chances with Bear Alexander and the Georgia O-lineman? So Nebraska fans are fun, right? Not you specifically, Lucas, just Nebraska fans in general. So I get these random questions all the time about players who I don't even think about as guys who would be considering Nebraska. I don't even know if Nebraska will offer them or if they have talked to them. Not saying that this is the case with Bear. I'm just saying in general. I get all of these crazy questions about players. So Bear Alexander is the number one, I think he's number one defensive tackle in the portal right now. Every school wants him, obviously. He played a bit at Georgia. I don't know if he played a significant role, but he played, in a few games. I think he's played like 7 or 8 games. He had a sack in the national championship or 2 or something. Point is, people get all excited whenever they see Georgia defensive tackle in the portal. But it doesn't mean that there's a legitimate chance he comes to Nebraska, right? He was on a visit to USC already. I think we get really excited and really hopeful. And I haven't even considered this guy as an option. I'm sure Nebraska's reached out. But I don't think Nebraska's even being considered. That's just my personal take on it. I haven't heard anything about it to say that Nebraska's in the game or in the hunt. So, yeah. Grandpa Jim says, do we win the opener at Minnesota? Thanks. I think it's a 3-point game either way. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get closer. But it's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be a war. I'm excited for that one, though. It's going to be fun because there's a little bit of a rivalry there. Opener, so everyone in the country is going to be watching it. They'll all be watching it, and they'll all be saying, oh, 2 shitty teams playing from the Big Ten. I don't care. It's going to be a great football game. Matt says, Smothers will be gone. Thoughts? Thoughts? My only thought is, what percentage do I agree with you? I would say I agree with you like 80%. But at the same time, I'm going to take that number down. At the same time as me saying I agree, I think I more so agree with the fact that I think he's going to get buried. So 80% chance says he's going to get buried and never play. 50% chance he leaves. No, 40% chance he leaves. No, 50. I don't know. I'd probably say somewhere around 50% mark. It depends if he wants to play. Or if he says, I'm not going to be a pro football quarterback anyway. I'm just going to stay at Nebraska, maybe learn from a really good coaching staff, enjoy my time here, get an education. Maybe he doesn't leave. But yeah, I don't think Smothers is going to play. The quarterback room is now shifted. Last year, we saw a room where Heinrich Harburg wasn't an option. He wasn't the Whipple type of quarterback. This year, Heinrich switches over. Now Smothers is probably going to drop back down. If you look at all the quarterbacks who are going to play, they all have a similar body type, a similar build, minus Casey. And Casey does bring some other great elements to the table, though. And yeah, I think it's going to be really hard for Smothers. So it's not a bad thing. It's just not all of them are meant to be stars, I guess we can say. But he stayed this long. Best comment yet. I leave this comment for everyone. Watch Minnesota and Wisconsin spring game, and you'll feel better about where we're at. Watch any spring game around the country outside of Georgia or USC or Alabama, and they all have issues. Even USC had issues, but they all have issues. Nebraska having issues was expected. People going into this with these expectations that we were going to see a perfect game, or we were going to see Jeff Sims come out here and light it up, or we were going to see the running backs explode because there's this newfound offensive line pipeline and the coaches have all got it figured out. It's just all ridiculous. It's been a month and a half. All that's different from now in the Iowa game. The Iowa game was November 26th. November, December, January, February, March, April. 6 months ago was the Iowa game. The only difference is 1 month they spent conditioning, winter conditioning. 1.5 months they spent training together. So we've got a month and a half of football. We've got a month of training and body development. We weren't going to see anything crazy today. We were going to see, some different scheme. We were going to see the new defense. We were going to see some of the new players for the first time, but I wasn't expecting Nebraska to come out and look like a 7-win team today. And I don't think most people were. So yeah. Danny says, do you think Coach Rule will look to the transfer portal for an offensive lineman? I don't know if he will. I hope he does. If Nebraska could get one more offensive lineman, it would be great because injuries will come. As we saw today, 2 offensive linemen go down in the spring game. What happens when we get to the 12-game slate during the season? How many offensive linemen do we lose in that time? Especially if we're talking about starters. You've got Teddy Prohaska, who's coming off an injury. He's injury prone at this point with back-to-back. You've got Turner Corcoran, who went down today, who's a projected starter. So, yeah, you'd want one more. I don't know if they'll get one, but yeah. That's my thought. Cade says, I thought the offense was a bit stale. Of course, it was only the spring game. Reminds me of Bo Pelini offenses, which is no bueno. That's interesting. So I understand the Bo Pelini offense comment a little bit. And now that I think about it, I understand where you're coming from with thinking the offense is stale because it was a Bo Pelini style offense. One sec. But at the same time, I felt like the offense had so many different looks. They came out in I formation, they came out in shotgun, they came out in 3 wide, they used the tight ends, they used the fullback, they ran traps, they did so many different things. I don't know that I would say the offense is stale and that I don't trust it. I think I'm really excited going forward to see what they can do and what they can install into a game plan. I think they have a lot of weapons, and because you have a lot of weapons, they're going to be... You have to remember, we're talking about a 6-win team, a 7-win team. We're not talking about a team who's going to make the jump and compete for a Big Ten championship. We're talking about a team who's a little bit better than what we saw last year. This offense is night and day better from what we saw last year. There are more elements, there's more confusion, there's more to scheme against, there are more guys who can make plays, and there are more guys who will get opportunity. Cade, you got to have realistic expectations here. And the realistic expectation is we're going to make a little bit of a jump forward. And then each year from there, we'll make a little bit more. And it might take 3 years, but we're going to build an offense that works. So, I don't know. That's just my thought on it. Melissa says, look at the freshman linebacker that transferred to Michigan. Are we talking about Ernest Hausman? What are we looking at? Okay, now I'm lost in the comments. There is a lot going on here. We got Michigan fan trolling. We got Go Big Ready trolling. Try Glasson. As a Wisconsin fan watching the QB not being under center felt so weird. Defense still dominated though. You're talking about the Wisconsin spring game? Gotta clarify for me. I'm assuming you're talking about the Wisconsin spring game because it was weird seeing him run shotgun. I didn't pay attention to the defense. I saw it. I just didn't pay attention as much to the defense. I was much more intrigued by the Wisconsin offense since we're going to see such a makeover on that side. Juan says Jenkins beat Piper for second at center. I don't know. I thought Piper was playing guard at some point. Is Piper number 57? Yes, he is. I thought he was playing guard. I don't know. Who knows? You guys gotta tell me because I can't keep up with everything. I try and make sure I download all this information and get as much in as I can, but it's hard. So my question, Juan, let me know. Was Piper playing guard or was he playing center? Okay. Wolverine Nation says Nebraska's the toilet of the Big Ten for at least one more year. No, Nebraska's not going to be elite, but they're not going to be at the bottom. You've got Northwestern and Iowa, who I think are both going to be struggling a little bit more than Nebraska will. Jack says Nebraska being 4-8 makes the fan base eager to think any transfer is an improvement. Agree or disagree? Yeah, 100%. Nebraska fans get really excited, and it's not just Nebraska fans, it's every fan, right? A lot of fans around the country who typically it's more casual fans. They see a big name pop up, and they get super pumped up because they're like, whoa, we just got a big name guy. And although he didn't play at his last school, it doesn't matter. He was a 5-star recruit in high school, so we're going to get all amped up and pumped to watch him play. Which is ridiculous because most guys who enter the transfer portal will never pan out. Most guys who enter the transfer portal left their original school because they weren't good enough to play there. You know, a great indication is this, and it's not true in all scenarios. There are outliers, but a great way to look at it. If a guy transfers up, you get excited. If a guy transfers down, you ask some questions. Now, a lot of guys won't get excited for this type of player, but I do. If a guy comes from Miami, Ohio, and he was the #1 receiver on the team, I am much more excited than when you tell me a linebacker from Georgia comes in who was never going to see the field. I don't want sloppy seconds. I want the guy who was elite, who they had to try and keep there, and who they couldn't keep there because the Big Red was the badder team, the prettier team, the one who's got a better chance for him to go to the pros, better coaches, whatever you want to say. Nebraska is the highlight place, so they're going and taking the ugly guy's girlfriend. I don't want the rich guy's ex-wife. That's the best way to say it. Sounds dumb. Anyway, the point is this. Guys get very excited over transfers. Yes. CJ thinks Smothers leaves. At this point, I don't think it matters. I think we've already established Smothers is going to have a role. And we kind of all know what that role is. And whether he's here or not doesn't affect the quarterback room, in my opinion. Senor Chef said they did reach out to Bear Alexander. Yeah, I saw they did reach out to him. I just don't know if they could get him on a visit or anything. I don't even know. Did he put up a final 5 or is he saying when he's going to commit? Nebraska's not going to get him. I just know that. Husker Nation said, I don't think the offense had any turnovers when Sims was out there. Okay, let me go back to my notes. Sims did have a drop. Let me think. Torres had an interception. Miss handoff. Okay, there was a missed handoff by Sims and Bonner. That was a fumble. Did they recover it is the question. I don't think they did. I think the red team got on it. But I can't remember for sure. That would be the only time there was a turnover with Sims out there. But yeah, Sims did have that drop with Bonner. It was just a miss exchange, I think. It was quick, but I noticed it. Oklahoma spring game final was 84-82. I would love to know how they were scoring that game. Garrison coming with the heat. Nebraska didn't look like a 7-win team today? Question mark times 3? Come on, let's be real. We look good. Thank you, Garrison. That's a fact. Nebraska looked good today. Nebraska's schedule is set up to win 7 games. You don't have to be elite to win 7 games with this schedule. You got to be good enough. Nebraska was good enough last year. They're for sure good enough this year. Anyway, I love that comment, Garrison. Thanks for putting us back on a positive note because we need to get some good energy in here. Wolverine Nation, thank you for the $2 super chat. Love Nebraska fans, best fans in the country. You know, I think we're the best fans in the country because we tolerate the most out of any fans in the country. And yeah, we're ride or die no matter what goes on. So thanks. Tater, member for 6 months? Thanks for the support. I seen good and bad today. I did too. Just sad I didn't rep 402. I couldn't rep 402. Why couldn't you rep 402? Tater, are you the dude whose house burned down and your 402 hoodie got burnt? Also, guys, this was sad. I got this DM. I gotta tell you this. So I got this DM. Let me see where it is. I screenshotted it. I'm not even gonna waste my time going through here. I've already made you wait long enough. Okay, so I got a message from a Corn Crate subscriber whose house burned down and his 402 hoodie didn't make it out. And so he hit me up, asked me if I have any more 402 hoodies. I felt bad. I couldn't give him a 402 hoodie right away because I don't have any right now. I'm going to get some and then I'm going to give him one. But yeah, unfortunate. I was shocked that after your house burned down, you remembered the 402 hoodie though. Shocked. Because there are a lot of things I think you'd be worried about. But I'm going to send you a hoodie when I get one. I promise you I'm going to have a 2X soon. Ardwin says, Rule said like he feels like he's in year 2. Look at this year. Look at his year 2s, and that's where expectations should be. So year 2s were around 6 wins, so expectations should be around 6 wins. But you also have to factor in the strength of schedule, and in our case, we're getting some easy games. So you get 3 free wins in my opinion. I know no win is free, but I'm calling them free. Louisiana Tech, Colorado. Who's the 3rd team they play? Doesn't even matter. It's a whatever team. It's I gotta look it up. Nebraska schedule. You guys are gonna know this answer way faster than me. Northern Illinois. So you've got 3 free wins in my opinion. How many can you win on top of that? 5? Well, if they win 5, Nebraska's far ahead of his year 2 expectations, right? I don't know. I'm hopeful. There are a lot of opportunities to win games. And terrible, just terrible is saying it best. Expect 6 to 8. Cambridge says, did you gather anything from Rule's presence on the field? You know, he was super dialed in and he wanted to make sure that they were putting their players in new situations and creating uncomfortable scenarios so that they can grow and learn from it. I like that. What did he do? He took a timeout at a certain time trying to create a situation where Chuba Purdy would get one more shot at the end zone. I think that was at the end. I like that he was switching guys around. I think that the whole idea that Rule is so engaged with this team, and he's participating in all elements, right? He's participating in special teams, defense. He works so tightly with the coaches. I think his involvement, and from what we saw today, he's very involved, is going to pay dividends down the road. And Scott Frost, it felt like, was very focused on what he thought his role was. His role was the offense. His role was the quarterbacks. His role was receivers. And we saw a lot of other areas slip because the head coach wasn't as hands-on. And yeah, Matt Rule has the ability now to coach his coaches because he sees what they're doing, right? Whereas Nebraska's old staff, I don't think they were getting coached as much by the head coach. And the head coach is supposed to be the supreme leader who has most of the insight and can guide his staff. So that's my takeaway. Okay, I'm getting through chat. Hang on. CJ says, for all those who are wondering, Luke concussed. who? Thank you for the $2 super chat. First off, CJ. But what are we talking about? Are we talking about Luke Reimer? I'm confused, CJ. Maybe it was earlier in the chat and I wasn't paying attention. Another $2 super chat. Thank you, CJ. What do you think of Husker football this year? I feel like I just gave a breakdown of that, even though I answered it before I saw your super chat. But in general, I think this year is something we can be excited and optimistic about. That's kind of my point. And I'm sorry it took me a long time to get to your super chat, CJ. I had to scroll through and find them. McFly guy. So here, I had mentioned a minute ago when I was talking about the transfers, usually a guy who transfers down doesn't pan out as well. Usually a guy who transfers up, I get more excited about. I also said a key word. There are outliers. Outliers meaning Trey Palmers, right? So, of course, there's going to be a guy like Trey Palmer. Of course, there's going to be a guy like MJ Sherman, hopefully, right? Or Elijah Judy. But usually, the ones I would get excited about are guys like Jordan Addison, who goes from Pitt to USC. Or, who else? There's a ton of examples. I actually did this little experiment with my cousin the other day when we were talking about all the transfers. But this is the example of an outlier. You never know what you're going to get. Michael says that he just got back from the spring game. Crazy, there were 66,000 people there today. A lot of them. He said Jeff and Billy look like studs together. Also, this team looks very physical and aggressive. I love it. What was interesting is that the quarterbacks and receivers now, Jeff Sims, Heinrich, Chuba, they're getting so much time together and so much time to perfect their timing. And then you're going to have Casey come in, who's a little bit behind. But in reality, I think Casey has the better accuracy. And I think because he's more accurate and more consistent, he's not going to be that far behind, even though he's not going to be in the same rhythm as those three other quarterbacks we had just talked about. So it's anybody's race to win at this point. I made that video and made the case for Casey, but anybody can take it, I promise you. All these quarterbacks possess different skill sets. But really, it's just two of them. It's two of them right now. In the future, maybe Heinrich gets a chance, but right now, there's two of them. I like this. Back-to-back comments. Cody says, I think the defense alone is good enough for at least 6 wins. Josh's follow-up. 6 fumbles and an interception? No way. Well, listen. First comment addressing this. Defense alone is good enough for 6 wins. I think the defense is going to be improved, and I think the defense is going to look a lot different. It's going to be harder for teams to scheme against. It's going to be confusing. I like the idea that the defense is going to be a 6-win level defense. And then we got the 6 fumbles and an interception. This is a spring game. This is really early on. Guys aren't disciplined as they should be. Guys are not as prepared as they should be in some of their roles. And because of that, there were some slip-ups. You had Ty Hahn, who I think they've been talking about Ty Hahn in spring practice as one of the guys who's shown out as a receiver. He had a silly fumble. A.J. Allen, another silly fumble. A lot of missed handoffs, dropped balls in the snap. There were just little stupid things, and those stupid things will get cleaned up over time. They're frustrating to watch, but I'm not too concerned about those right now. James says, how did Gilbert do? Gilbert didn't make much of an impact today. Didn't do much. CJ was talking about Luke Reimer, who got concussed in practice. That's why he wasn't playing today. Got it. I didn't even realize he got concussed. I thought he was injured before that. But I guess that was actually Nick Henrich. Nick Henrich had a prior injury. That's why he wasn't playing. I was grouping those two together. Riley says Wisconsin's offense isn't looking too hot. Yeah, but Wisconsin's got a huge makeover. They've got a bigger makeover on their offense than Nebraska has on theirs. So it's going to be tough. Galactus says Rayola's story isn't over. Georgia's stacked at QB. Remember a quarterback that shunned us for Stanford? Pepperidge Farm remembers. So the Raiola story isn't over, but here's my take on Raiola. If he goes to Georgia, his competition isn't going to be that tough. Now, you might say, well, you've got Vandegrift and Carson Beck there, and both are staying, and one's going to be the start, whatever. I think by the time Rayola's in line to start, both those guys will be gone. When I say in line to start, I mean as a sophomore. Georgia's not the school who's going to be recruiting 5-star quarterbacks because they never really have. I think the last 5-star quarterback they got was Matt Stafford. These other 2 quarterbacks are borderline. I think one's a borderline 4-star on 3 composite. The other one's a 4-star borderline 5 on 3 composite. Anyway, Georgia's not the school who goes out and recruits quarterbacks the way USC or some of the other places do. Old Oklahoma, Alabama. So I think Rayola's going to be just fine. I don't think he'll end up transferring back. I think he's going to be set if he gets to Georgia, and he'll be successful there. So when Rayola commits, if he does commit there, then fantastic. That ship in my mind has sailed. Nebraska's going to go out and find other quarterbacks. There are so many who come from the transfer portal, and they're going to go and find a guy in high school who they can develop. So yeah, the Rayola conversation has just completely exited my mind, and I finally freed myself of all of that because there was, for what, 4 months, there was so much talk about the 17-year-old that I was just, it burnt me out. And I had to make videos about it because there were so many questions, but man, it was a lot. A lot. A minute ago, we were talking about guys who transferred up. Samari Toure, fantastic example. Brian Buschini, fantastic example. Dutch says, just want to thank you so much for giving us all this feedback and information. Don't know what I'd do without you. Hey, thank you for coming onto the stream and watching it, because without you guys watching it, we've got like 370 people here right now. Without you watching it, I wouldn't be making it. And if I wasn't making it, I'd be depressed because I don't have very much fun just sitting around and talking to myself about Nebraska football. I need somebody to talk about it with. So thank you guys for being here. Okay, I got caught up to the chat. There's a lot of them in here. Casey was with Sims smiling after Sims did his interview. Much better guy than me. Could not be that friendly with a guy coming for my spot. But you have to realize, Casey wants to win. Casey's mentality is, I'm going to win this job. And if I want to win after I win the job, I need to make sure there's proper depth behind me. If something happens to Casey, he's got to have a competent backup. And Jeff Sims would make for a very competent backup. So from Casey's position, I love the confidence. The dude's still saying, it's my job. I respect it. Lucas says, is it just me or does this team seem more conditioned than years before? I think that Campbell is the biggest difference makeover over the next couple of years. Great strength and conditioning is what we were missing. I'm not sure what the issues were with the prior strength and conditioning, and I don't know how much difference the conditioning is making, like what the differences are. I do know that they're doing situational conditioning now, right? They've got guys outside and they've got guys in the cold, and they're getting guys used to the elements. So maybe that's part of it, but I don't know too much about it. I think in general, we're seeing guys who are going to be stronger and better athletes and who are more flexible because a lot of the players are talking about and crediting their coaches for getting them in those better situations than I think they've been in before. Roadside says, I think we'll be able to run off the left side come fall. I'm worried about the athleticism on the right side. Well, one thing I saw about the left side today was they had a lot of crack blocks with the fullback to the left. So there were a lot of protections over there. You had a lot of an extra guy, so you had a lot of opportunity to make sure that you weren't going to be limited or outnumbered if a guy broke through the line. I'm wondering if they're going to use Bonner to do the same on the right side if they needed to and they wanted to run right. I don't know how the offensive line will shake out, and I don't know who will be where once Prohaska comes back. But I'm not too worried about the left or right side yet until that final depth chart comes out and we see which side's the real strength. Melissa says the defense looked much further along than the offense. Yeah, I was surprised that the defense looked so polished. But was it that the defense was really polished, or was it the offense that was really sloppy? I think that's the big question here, and I don't know the answer to it right now. I got to go back and watch. But the defense did look pretty good, especially for having so many new starters. You have 3 new on the offensive line. There were 2 new guys at linebacker. I think you had 2 DBs. So really over half the defense. Yeah, like 7 guys on defense are new, who are all potentially starters. That's incredible. Z Guy says, what did I miss? That Heinrich isn't being talked as looking better than Sims. I saw the first quarter and half the second, and Sims looked sloppy. Heinrich looked great. Heinrich isn't as good of a passer as Sims. That's for sure. Sims had some inconsistency, and he had some missed throws, no question about it. Heinrich and Sims both look very similar in terms of athleticism. I think Sims might be faster, straight line speed, but physically, when they're running downhill, I think, yeah, very similar. I still would lean Sims heavy. I think he has so much more experience. So although your few plays you might have seen in the first quarter and the second half might have said that Heinrich looked better, overall, Sims was for sure the better QB. Tyler says, how'd you like the new Herbie? Personally, I think the new change is something to get used to. I thought it was weird to look at him. You know, he's got these big, like, I don't know, cheekbones, I guess. Like, there were two high cheekbones here and it was a little puffy here. He looked a little bit chubbier than the old Herbie. I will say, the old Herbie from last year, the guy who wears the red polo and the red hat, I liked him because he looked fit. He looked like a football playing Herbie. He was younger looking. And now you've got a Herbie who's like an older farmer who's a little out of shape. I mean, I don't care. It's not gonna change my opinion of the school or how how tough the environment would be to play in or anything like that. The mascot doesn't mean anything, so whatever. But yeah, those are some things I noticed. We went from athletic ripped Herbie to chubby farmer Herbie, but whatever. Another funny back-to-back comments. Tyler says, Heinrich didn't impress. And then Josh says, Heinrich scored on a sweet QB sneak. Yeah, Heinrich did, okay. Heinrich didn't impress. I don't even like saying that. Heinrich did impress. He did pretty well. Heinrich didn't impress you because your expectations were probably higher for him than the rest of us. Heinrich didn't play last year. Heinrich didn't get any looks last year. He was buried on the depth chart, and Mark Whipple essentially said, you will not play for me. So for him to come from the gutter and find a way to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks is fantastic. And I think he really did well today, considering the circumstances. McFly Guy says, Bonner looked more physically imposing than I thought he would. Same. I thought they were trying to get him into the 220s, but he already looks like he's in the 220s. The guy looked like a legitimate fullback, and he's 6'1", 6'2". I really like Bonner. I'm excited for the fullback position. I'm excited because we have him for at least 2 years. True freshman last year. Yeah, at least 2 more years. Hokey says, watch Wynn, Judy, and Sherman command the trench on D this year. Did you guys notice that Judy was on the defense with Sherman? Wynn was on the white team? No, red team defense. No, white team defense. I don't know what you guys thought about that. Does that mean that Judy is playing better than Wynn? I don't know. That was an interesting thing. I didn't look into it much, didn't think about it much, but now that the comments here, that's for sure in my head. And Riley says, Heinrich was the most impressive of the younger QBs. Sims still looked like the best QB on the field. Yep, I think there's no question that Sims and Casey are the 2 QBs to watch for. Heinrich and Chuba are definitely going to be fighting for that second spot. And then, everybody else will have to figure it out. Richard Torres is still really raw. He didn't play at all last year. He was injured. So, yeah. Either way, I'm excited for the top 3 quarterbacks. I think we have a lot to look forward to in them. Pete says, did Fedoni play today? I only got to watch off and on, but I don't recall seeing him. Fedoni did play. I don't remember. Did he have a drop ball? He had a pass that went his way. I just can't remember if he caught it or not. Melissa says A.J. Rollins looked good. Yeah, A.J. Rollins switched over to first team defensive end. He was on the right side, I think, opposite of M.J. Sherman. He looked really good. He had a sack. He had a couple tackles. He did well. I was surprised because AJ Rollins, I thought last year did well in the spring game at tight end. So now for him to do well in the spring game at defensive end, the guy's just an athlete. He's gifted and he should be able to get to see the field on defense. Tater, thank you for the $5 super chat. I wish the new Herbie looked more like the 90s Herbie. I personally hated the fit polo Herbie. Mascots don't make teams, but they mean something. I think that the new Herbie does look a little bit like the 90s Herbie with a modern twist. So I totally get that you didn't like the fit polo Herbie, but I think this one looks a lot like the 90s Herbie. So you're getting what you want, in my opinion. But thank you for the 5, and thank you for being a member, Tater. Defense looked like they were getting a lot more pressure on the QBs across the board compared to years past. They did look a lot better, and I think part of it was the blitzing and the scheme on defense. They have different things that kind of confuse that offensive line, so they were getting through. Another part of it is the offensive line just isn't that great. And another part is I think these quarterbacks are willing to run. So if they're willing to scramble around in the backfield, it makes it so that the defensive guys can kind of shed off tackles, shed off guards or tackles or center, whoever. They're shedding off the offensive linemen. And when they shed off them, it makes it look like they're getting more pressure just because there's more of a time delay when you have a quarterback who scrambles and doesn't try to release it within 5 seconds, right? I don't know. DBs were all over the wide receivers. Hartzog made a good pass breakup. The DBs played really well today, and the DBs is one of the strengths of the defense. You've got the running back core on offense with Irvin. I'm blanking. Irvin and Grant as the top 2. A.J. Allen as the number 3. And then the DBs, you obviously have Hartzog back there. You have Marquise Buford, who's not even playing yet. Newsome, Farmer. There are a lot of guys who can make big plays and who have in the past over the last 2 or 3 years. So I think those are the 2 strengths, the running back room and the DB room. Redwine says Sims has more of an arm than I thought. What's interesting is a lot of people didn't think he had that great of an arm. What it is he's got a cannon. He can throw it really deep. He can throw it really fast. He can release it really quickly. His issue is consistency and decision making. As long as he can tighten up on the decision making and not throw as many picks, and if he can get consistent in his accuracy, then he looks like an NFL quarterback because he possesses a lot of these really good skill sets, right? Athleticism, the deep ball, he can deliver it on time. I mean, there were a few that were overthrown. It's the inconsistencies, I think, is the way to put it. So as long as these guys can tighten up the inconsistency, they'll look better. Tanner says, seriously, Heinrich looked terrible. Didn't pass well. Just about underthrown a wide receiver for the 2-point. Like I said before, the expectations for him, I'm not looking at this guy as a starting quarterback. So I'm not looking at Heinrich and saying, well, he had a bad day today because he didn't hit every pass. And he had a bad day today because he isn't the most accurate QB on the team. The fact that this guy went from, we don't know if he's a quarterback or a tight end or what, to he's competing for a legitimate QB3 spot just because of his athleticism, that says something. I'm looking at the optimistic side, right? The pessimistic side is what you're talking about. And I totally hear you, Tanner. He isn't a great quarterback. I agree. He isn't a great quarterback. But if they find a way to use him and run the ball, and if he can deliver a few passes, and he's serviceable, maybe he's a good number 3. But I do understand. Woogie says it. There you go. Thomas says, if Casey or Sims wins the job, will the other transfer? No, I don't think so. So this is my take on Casey. Casey's not playing to be an NFL QB. That's my opinion. I don't know that to be true. That's just the way I read it. I think Casey's going to get his master's at Nebraska right now. He wants to open up a training facility. His objective is to be a leader in business. And a lot of people say he'd make a great coach. Maybe he wants to be a football coach. But let's say he goes the business path. He's going to school for free at Nebraska. If he transfers again, what's the point? He's going to have to transfer all his school stuff. He's going to have to sit out probably for this year and not play because he's not going to enter a QB battle at some other school and fight out for a position. It doesn't make sense. Casey would stay. He'd finish up his final year at Nebraska. He knows he would play somewhat because no quarterbacks have ever made it through an entire season unscathed and made it through 12 games as a starter. Most guys at Nebraska end up getting hurt. Just the fact of the matter. Anyway, if Jeff Sims was to take over the starting role and only played 9 or 10 games this year, Casey started 2 or 3, I think he'd be content and accepting of that. He would move on then, he would become a coach, or he'd go and do his thing in business. Jeff Sims, on the other hand, if he was to lose to Casey, again, it might not make it through every game. Jeff Sims comes in and plays a little bit. Then he has next year. So Jeff Sims takes this year to develop and get better. Next year he becomes the full-time starter because Nebraska loses Casey. So either way, no, I don't think either of these quarterbacks transfer out. I think we're in a really good spot, and that would be exciting. Hokie says, did Chief get any minutes today? And who was number 44? He was everywhere today. Also forgot to mention Lenhart played well too. Same with Stanger. I don't remember Stanger as much. I remember Snodgrass playing a lot. I heard Stanger's name twice. Chief did play, I think, on red? I can't remember if he was on white or red. Number 44. Who was 44? I don't remember who 44 was. I remember seeing 44 because I don't think he had a name on the back. But I can't remember who 44 was off top. Hardwin says Case is a team player. Whether he makes it or not, the guys on the team know him for being a leader, and that's what he knows he is and will do. Great way to spin it, Hardwin. I don't think he leaves because of that reason. I'm going to respond to you because I love you, David. I'm going to respond, but I hate talking about this topic. I'm ready to go to bed whenever I hear this name pop up. I wonder if XYZ watched the game and if the poor showing of the spring game may have swayed him even more from Nebraska. What poor showing? What? David, I shouldn't even open the comment. XYZ probably watched the game. He probably did. But XYZ is not someone that's considering Nebraska at this point, I don't think. The second part of this, the poor showing of the spring game. That wasn't a poor showing. It was an improvement. It was a first-year staff figuring things out with a bunch of new players. It was a very positive spring game. I can't wait to make my video tomorrow. I'm going to have so many positives to say, and I'm going to have all these comments with haters saying, no, Nebraska played like shit. You're funny, David. You caught me there. Judy, good seeing you again as well. Thank you. I try to do my best when I talk about Nebraska football, and I try to be myself, so I'm glad you like my personality. She says, I hate to say it, but I don't think this game drew anyone that was on the fence. It's a good point. I don't think it would draw anyone who was on the fence. I think all we would learn from today in recruiting is, did the recruits, I said this earlier in the show actually, did the recruits like what they saw from a coaching perspective? Did they like the energy that the players had? Did they like this style? And if they did, Nebraska might be the place for them. And if they didn't, oh well. The players aren't going to look at this spring game and say, if this is what the team's going to look like in fall, because this isn't what teams look like in fall. They look different, right? They look more improved because we got another whole slate of practices coming in July? Yeah. So yeah, that's my take. July, August. Anyway, there you go. Dutch, 44, Sincere Saifullah. Thank you. We talked about him earlier, so we're not going to talk about him again. Hilarious, Husker Nation. Sam says, I even saw some Georgia fans that were mad about stuff in their spring game. Fans are always going to be overcritical when it's the only football we get for a long time. That's it. Thank you, Sam. That's the comment. I don't need to elaborate. You said it for me. You took the words out of my mouth. Spark Adventures, thank you for the $2 super chat. It felt like this team has some balance to it. It did. It felt like this team had a good run game. They had a decent passing game. they had a decent defense. It didn't feel lopsided, and it felt like even if we take away the front line, the second stringers, the third stringers, they're all good players. They can all come in and contribute. They can all come in and rotate. And one of the things that Matt Rule said he wanted to do, I'm not sure when he said it, in the last few weeks over spring, he wants to play a lot of guys on defense. I'm sure he wants to run 3 running backs out there, rotate 6, 7, 8 receivers, play 3, 4 tight ends. So, yeah, positive. Has balance in terms of depth. Tater, thank you for the $5 super chat. So excited to watch the reaction video. Fuck the haters. We got to see football today. It's not polished. It's a rough cut. Very rough. It's like watching me talk on live stream, guys. You watch me talk on live stream and then you watch one of my polished videos and you're like, Jesus, he sucked on the live stream. What was that mess? And then I come out on a live video. It's 12, or a real video. It's 12 minutes, edited, perfect, because I took a lot more time to get it right. This team's going to take a lot more time to get some things right. And when we see the polished version of it, the corn crazed version of it, come Minnesota in August, we're going to feel a lot better about what we're watching. I promise you. I promise. Roger says, love the no knee braces. That was interesting to see. You always see knee braces on offensive linemen, and they didn't rock them today. Tanner says, we'll win a lot. The Frank Solich curse is gone. All hail Frank. Frank Solich did say in a presser the other day that any curse that's here is now gone. So he said he's not responsible for it, which it's not his fault. We're going to blame the athletic department, the athletic director back then. But yeah, the curse is gone since he lifted it. And the final comment before I get out of here, Tanner, don't care if we go 1-11 this year. Just beat Colorado. Thank you. I couldn't say that there's one game that's more important on the schedule than that one in terms of winning. Because if we lose to Colorado this year, we don't get another chance to play them for a really long time. And because they're going to be so shitty this year, it would be such an embarrassing loss. Also, I'm going to be at that game. It needs to be a win. I'd prefer a win over Colorado over Iowa, personally. I'd rather win that game. So thank you, Tanner, for signing us off. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. We've been live for a while. Let's see. We've been live for, I can't even tell, a long time. An hour and a half? Something like that. Yeah, an hour and 27 minutes. I just found it. We had some technical difficulties today, but thank you guys for all staying here. We had 330-something people on the entire time, which was fantastic. I can't wait to make my video for tomorrow and give you guys my entire thoughts and breakdowns on the presser and everything we watched from today. Glad I got to answer a bunch of questions and hang out with you. You know how much I love making Corn Craze content, and we're only 4 months away from the season. I've got about 20 videos to make from now until season starts. I roughly outlined that, and I'm sure more will pop up. I'm going to try and do, one a week from here on out, something like that. I'm going to go to Wyoming next week, and then after I come back from Wyoming, I'll get back on my content game. My travel picks up a little bit, but I'm going to try to structure it and make sure I get all the videos on my to-do list done. So I am going to get out of here. I'm going to Theo Vaughn tonight. He's playing at the Improv on Melrose, so that should be interesting. And I'm going to get out of here right now and take a shower, go watch the press conferences, and get ready for tonight. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate all the comments a ton. I'm sorry about the audio. I don't know what happened. I did a test right before and it worked. And yeah, the problem is I just bought a new mic. I'm going to tell you guys the truth. I bought a new mic setup. Here it is. So this is the standard, Shure mic that you see everybody use. The whole setup was like $700. When I bought that, I had to adjust all my settings. And I had to buy this there's just a lot of stuff going on. I had to do a bunch. And then I had to get Denon on the phone, and it's just a lot. And then I have Brothrow, who I make content for. So because I've got this entire tech workplace now, it's getting really complicated. My my knowledge and my capacity for understanding isn't up to par with being able to run an entire live show by myself. So I'm going to get back with Denon. I'm going to fix all my issues, and once it's all corrected, we'll be able to do a live call-in show. But anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.